This is Business Hub.
All right, Lagos, it is 16 minutes going to 5. You are tuned into Business Hub on Smooth 98.1. My name is Joy Marie, and it is definitely going to be an interesting conversation because, yes, yesterday we were talking about STEM, and I know that we have something of an education series going on. We'll be touching on that a lot this week. Yesterday on Marketplace, we discussed STEM, and that was for those who don't know what STEM is, maybe you're under the rock. But STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I had an advocate who spoke to it yesterday. However, today we'll be falling through in that trajectory. How do I mean? Today we'll be talking or discussing how to prepare Nigerian students for the workplace. You have your ward. He or she has gone through school, he's finished, but it's almost as if they're not ready to get into the workplace. They're not ready for the job market, and you keep wondering, but they have the knowledge. Is that all they need, though? Well, my guest in the person of Emma Tarrant Tayou, she's the director of the Graduate Guardians Group, and she'll be sharing insights, especially for those who are thinking, okay, is it just all I need to have is my CV? Is that all you need, though? Is that all you need, though? Well, like I said, it is definitely an important conversation to have this evening. If you have questions, you have contributions you'd like to share, what you can do for me is you can share it through our WhatsApp platform. The number is 0911 0911 You can save it and share your thoughts on WhatsApp, and I'm sure that Emma will do her best to explain it as easily as possible for you. And talking about my guest, glad to have you in once again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. So let's get into this conversation because, for me, growing up, naturally, I was thinking, oh, all I need to do is graduate from school, make sure I have the best grades, and once I get into the job market, it should be that easy because I have good grades, right? But
Mhm.
really, is that all it is? Is there preparation for the workplace? And is it only all about my curriculum's quality? Because that is the first thing I've dusted everything. I made sure that, I had my CV was showing like, oh, my days. She graduated with high honors and I don't have any work experience. So it makes me wonder, where do we go? How do we go about it?
I think it's a great discussion to have about, what's the name of the school that you know, you're graduating from, but also how employable are you? And I think one of the biggest fallacies is just that, okay, you were able to go to a particular school or a particular university does not automatically make you employable. It's about how you use,
Mm,
that space and how you're able to apply it. So 100% having your CV is great, but just the basics of how is your CV presented? How are you talking about your skills and not just your qualifications?
mhm,
So I always come back to what we call foundational skills. So
mhm,
irrespective of what sector you're in, somebody who is employing you because they need something to be done, a problem to be solved, a service to be provided. Are
mm,
you able to communicate when there's an issue? Are you able to ask questions when you've not understood the instruction? So some of those kind of basic communication and collaboration skills, it cuts across every single sector. And how do we know whether we have them? How do we practice them? So all of
Okay.
these are things that, sometimes even with our kids, you'll see a 14-year-old, and you ask them, go and tell the waiter that, I don't know, we need more water for our table. And they're shy to go up to somebody that they don't know and ask the question.
Right.
But how do you find safe spaces so that people can build their confidence and communicate, out of their comfort zone as well? Those are all
Okay.
different things that we have to think about with relation to skills.
I like that. I like that. Honestly, now that you make mention, it's almost like asking the ground to just open up. You asked me to go get, oh no, mama, I can't do that. That will be the next reaction. But it takes a bold, it takes a bold child to actually step up. Oh, okay. So my mom says we need water on our table.
Hmm.
So how do you even break that barrier? How do you move away from what you understood was your expectation with regards to your CV as opposed to you presenting yourself? How do you even break that bond?
So I think if we take a step back again, just to the kind of skills, like I gave that example of, in a family setting, but I think
Right.
coming back to within schools and the advice that they're giving to students and how you're creating, again, those safe spaces to practice those skills.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I absolutely love when I visit a school and they're organizing. It could be a parents' evening, it could be a prize giving, it could be a careers day. And
Mm.
everything from the registration table to the MC to, everything is actually being run by the students themselves,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So you arrive and can I take your name, please? I want to check if you're registered. All of that is being handled by the students. It might be the final year, it might be the penultimate year group, but you're giving them that space to kind of practice.
Okay.
And those are then things that you can reflect on. You can add them even to your CV, right? That you've
Right.
had
Right.
that particular experience. When it comes to applying to specific jobs, that's a whole separate kind of ball game, because there you're
Mm.
looking at, okay, what do I have that matches that particular job description? And
Okay.
then we're getting into the whole space now of how much do you tailor your CV yourself? How much do you rely on
Mm.
tools? I know AI is a big kind of topic today.
Honestly.
Um, how do you use those tools in a productive way? And
Hmm.
I think that's probably a separate conversation. I don't know if you want us to get into that already.
I know we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Eventually, we have to touch on that. But now let's also talk about teachers. Okay, so in when we're talking about teachers, there's a long running debate in Nigeria about paying teachers well. If
Hmm.
we had to match this, because it's your foundation, it's the foundation of every child, right? They're the ones who instruct them in how it used to be, they need to be thought. But if they don't have the right motivation, would they even be willing to, put their best foot forward? So let's even talk about the teachers who are teaching these pupils or the students to be better individuals. How do their remuneration? Is it on par? Is it subpar? Where do we even go with that?
I think we'll find that that's a global issue, that teachers absolutely deserve to be paid a lot more for the responsibility that we give them. I think that's not unique to Nigeria. I don't think it's unique to Africa. I think this is something that is global in terms of ensuring that that investment, is where it should be.
Right.
And that your time at school is everything, so that you don't then have
Mhm.
to spend hours with tutors separately because the time you spent at school didn't meet that level, So I
Ah.
think it's a very, very topical debate. And personally, I would always love to see teachers paid more. That's kind of a personal opinion from my side. So that, yes, like you said, the teachers are motivated but I think not just about the cash payments. I think it's also
Right,
about,
right.
you know, how are they able to access kind of training? How are they able to hear from different voices? And I think when you're motivated, then, you know, you do also access and look for different
Uh,
ways of approaching and, you know, encouraging your students.
Okay, that is great stuff. I equally agree with you with teachers and remuneration. There's a there's a saying in Nigeria that a teacher's reward is in heaven. But I hope they don't have to wait till they get there before
100%.
they get the right rewards for their work, because it really isn't easy. And trust me, I understand what it is to have to teach a child, and then they do that all the way up, and they do some do it with such happiness, and you're like, you wake up every morning with this toddlers running around. It can be a lot. It can really be a lot, but it is always exciting to see them put their passion to good use. And well, we see how they produce, how the children or the students turn out. So it's awesome stuff. To big shout out to all the teachers out there and all the good works that they do. But you spoke about tutors and after school, right? So
Yeah.
certain people always, well, I've heard certain parents say, "Oh, the ones they get in school is not enough." They, do you think that it is something that they still need to do, or is it on specific subjects that they need to hone in their skills on,
I mean, obviously with each
like
student,
after school teaching?
yeah, I
Yeah.
think with
Okay.
each child, you have to kind of think about what their needs are. But what I would say is that there's so much evidence out there of, you know, sports leading to better performance within the classroom. You know,
Oh,
theatre
okay.
and creative kind of activities leading again to greater confidence and greater kind of communication skills. So it might be that sometimes you don't want to have everything just be, you know, subjects and tutors. Like think about how
Hmm.
you can give your child some of that balance, because it might be that actually an evening of sports, when they come back to that maths kind of homework,
Ooh.
it might actually somehow kind of be a little less laborious than if you've had a tutor kind of at you for 2 hours on that. So I think there's definitely an argument for balance and looking at how you can, yeah, exercise your body and your mind, as this is both for kind of high school students, university students, you know, having everything that is just in front of a screen or in front of, you know, um, assignments and so on. Sometimes a break and something completely different is actually what will allow you to do better in your academics.
I like that because, well, for certain students in certain schools, that is something they look forward to. They know
Yeah.
that, okay, so, well, for certain students who attend boarding school, they know that there are certain times where even after school, you know that there is a time for sports
Hmm.
much later in the evening. However, for the regular day students, they only have that opportunity during the day. It's almost as if it's never enough. But is that also a burden for the students? Do you ever think that those after school activities could be a burden to those students, because they're trying to, you would think, oh, okay, after they've had all that mental work at school, having to add this could be like a strain on them?
I think it's about variety and, you know, what's the alternative? Are you going to come home and, you know, get lost in watching a TV show where actually maybe it
Right.
doesn't challenge you in any way? Or are you going to come home and do something that, yeah, gives you a distraction and is actually giving you a break? So personally, I would say there's there's nothing that would ever be too much as long as you're making sure that you get those hours of sleep in, right? You know, once it becomes to kind of drop your hours of sleep, and we know young people need their sleep, you know, for
Oh,
their
yes.
development, and to be able to think clearly, you know, to grow. Once your sleep quota is satisfied, I don't think you can have too many different things going on. It's about balance, you know. So if you're going from something that is very academic to something that is sporty to something that's creative, once you have that variety, I can't see that, you know, there's too much, but I think it's, you know, how many hours in traffic is it? Are you getting enough sleep? You know, how do you balance it with that? You know,
Right.
that's then the real challenge.
I like the fact that you brought in the traffic part because some children are in traffic for hours. You know, they've experienced that during maybe, you know, with this school buses trying to get to each individual's home, and they've gone through that, and you're expecting them to still, they have homework piled already, and
Mm-hmm.
it could just literally be draining. But if they had something fun to look forward to, oh, that could actually make them more open-minded and figuring, okay, so this is where my strengths lie, and these are the things I need to work on. And even the parents as well will understand how best to help that child
Mm-hmm.
figure out what their life plan is. I remember when certain people were parents were talking about football, and some were saying, "Oh, one of my child has to be Mbappe." So it was Project Mbappe at some point in time. But
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's not only all about football. You can also engage them in other things that they would enjoy. If it's ballet for the girls, even boys do ballet, by the way. So
Mm-hmm.
don't make it look like it's all a sexist thing when it comes to certain sports. Help them explore their you know, what activities are best suitable for them. I think I like that one a whole lot. I'm hoping that parents are listening right now and we'll be doing that, especially as you're on holidays. It's summer holiday, and one of the things I've seen with most schools is they still have academics in there. They've done that all through the regular, school curriculum. Why not open them to something more fun
Mm.
that they can venture into? It just feels like it's rinse and repeat. But hey, I'm hoping that as schools are listening in as well, they'll be looking at how they can improve things going forward. Now let's get back into the more adult students. Let's talk about those who have actually graduated from school, maybe from
Mm-hmm.
secondary school or even the university. How do we now, before obviously, you know that they're preparing for those getting in from secondary school, trying to get to university.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are certain skill sets I believe they should have. How do we start to prepare students for the skill sets that they need in the real world? And I say this, I had the opportunity to intern at several places before I ever got into the real job market. So I had
Yeah.
an understanding of what it was like to be in a workspace, but
Mm-hmm.
not every child has the opportunity. So what are the skill sets, or what should parents or guardians around them help them do so they also get those real life experiences, and they're not just thrown into the workspace and it feels like, oh my goodness, my mental health is at stake.
So I think there's the responsibilities that we were coming back to in terms of how do you build in kind of safe space practice, right? You know,
Right.
so if I know that in a workplace I'm going to need to use Excel and build a budget, you know, and report on finances, how do
Mhm.
I bring in I don't know, let's say there's an end of year celebration within the school.
Okay.
How do you bring in maybe some of the students to actually even work on that?
Mm.
Now, it might not be that the work they produce is what is actually used, but
Right.
simulations, you know, within the space that would allow people to think about, hey, wait a minute, the maths that I'm studying, or the IT skills that I'm studying
Mm-hmm.
have this real world application. So
Right.
that's kind of one thing I would say is kind of giving students responsibility through kind of real world things that are very relevant to them. They will attend that end of year celebration. They will understand that, okay, the balloons that are decorating the space cost this much, per balloon, whatever it is. But then looking out for the internships, I think is really important. And I know schools that are doing this for students as young as kind of 12, it might just
Oh,
be a
awesome.
week,
Okay.
they'll call out to
Okay.
parents and say, okay, are you willing to have somebody shadow you for a week? They've got to show up on
Awesome
time, they've
stuff.
got to dress appropriately,
Right.
find something for them to do. And so
Mm-hmm.
those are ways where you can leverage and again create spaces where there's maybe less pressure. Like you said, by the time you actually get a paid opportunity, you're not
Right.
daunted by the prospect of, okay, well, how will I behave within this space? So I think for schools, I know some schools will leverage on their parent communities, some will leverage on
Okay.
maybe even their suppliers, people that they use for different things, and reach out and say, look, are you able to welcome some of our students, so that people get those internships, even short term when they're quite young, so that you demystify that workspace um, aspect. Once you get into university, I think it's a non-negotiable, that by
Oh,
the time
sadly,
you
not all of
graduate
them
from
have that.
university, you should have internship experience on your CV, whether
Mm,
it's paid, whether it's unpaid,
right.
you should
Right.
have had a dry run at least where you're looking out for things that you can say, I showed up, I had responsibilities, this is how, I acted on them. And the biggest mistake I think people make is to not give value to maybe unpaid or volunteer roles. I'll sometimes meet people who, I don't know,
Right.
they took part in a health charities kind of month of whatever. You showed
Right.
up on time, you helped design, you helped to distribute, you welcomed, and yes, you weren't paid, but that doesn't mean that you can't include it on your CV. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't give it value. Yeah.
I like that. I really do like that. But let's also talk. See, I'm big on internship, and whether paid or unpaid, I'm hoping that whoever is listening right now, you're doing your bit because you never can tell. Your work ethic could be the reason why you're called back or you're retained. So just do the needful and hey, you can never tell. Anyways, let me not digress. I know that everything seems to be tech related right now.
hmm
Um, let's touch a little on that because I know some people always say that you have to hone in all those tech skills. What about those who don't? Let's talk about those who have those skill sets. How do we help them? What's the step to help them improve? Is it just about coding? Is it attending events where they learn to upskill, or is there something that they're supposed to do better?
I think for those who have kind of more specialized tech skills, I think you have to appreciate that you're in a very fast-moving environment. And so you can't kind of spend 6 months where you're not kind of refreshing your skills, where you're not kind of keeping up with maybe what's new. And just looking out for, whether it's professional associations, whether it's kind of refresher skills, whether it's kind of online kind of boot camps. There are lots of things that, once you start looking for them, you will find kind of people who are more experienced in this sector who are really, really keen to, share their knowledge, and they
Okay.
have a need as well. They want to hire fresh talent that is up to date. And so
Right.
it's a win-win situation.
Okay, I like that. Now, what about those who are non-tech students? Do they have a future? Because it seems
100
like it's only those who are in the tech world that Tech Bro Texas, they're upscaling, but those who are not in that space, what does it pretend for them?
I don't think the future is for tech graduates only. I think everybody has a space to succeed, but I think that digital literacy today is also something that, is non-negotiable. You
Okay.
must be able to, use a computer, be able to
Hmm.
interact with different softwares. I mean, even if you go into a restaurant, waiters are using tablets to kind of take your orders. So it's
Right,
not
right.
always kind of tech in the traditional sense that you're sat in front of a big computer with multiple screens, but technology is everywhere. And so I think it's about embracing it, um, and not fearing it. So I was listening to something about, people using ChatGPT to generate their CVs. And
Oh,
they said,
yes.
what you need to do rather is, create what you think is your CV and then ask ChatGPT to critique it, roast my CV, tell me what's not clear in it. So you use it
Okay.
as a tool, if you're a
Right,
student and you've written an essay, like ask it, like, where is my essay unclear? Where is my train of thought not clear? So
right.
use it as a way to help you be better rather than as a way to kind of replace your own effort. So I think for those that don't have a tech background per se, we need people who understand human communication, who understand human connection, and there will always be a place, but you cannot run away from technology today. I think that's a given, in whichever sector you're in.
Mm, awesome stuff. Really, really awesome. And with regards to internship, right? I know we've touched on this a bit. What is the most effective internship in your view?
I think an effective internship is one where it's clear what both parties are trying to get out of it. Okay, so if somebody calls me and says, "Oh, I have somebody that's looking for an intern, can they come and intern with you in your company?" I could say yes and allow them to come and sit on the reception and just watch everybody for 2 weeks,
Right.
I have somebody who's warming a seat and keeping the receptionist company, maybe, but what are we actually getting out of it, So however short it is, I think it's great to kind of hear from the person, okay, what is it that
Okay.
you'd like to learn a little bit more about, so that by the
Right.
end of if it's 2 days, if it's 2 weeks, if it's 2 months, what do you want to have a better appreciation of in terms of the workspace? And then also for you as the company, and I think this, for any people listening, who run their own businesses and so on,
Hmm.
how is this an opportunity for you to maybe gather some intelligence or maybe get some feedback?
Mm.
Maybe you can use this as an opportunity to ask the person to test, your systems as a prospective client, whatever it is,
Right.
like,
Right.
so that you get some value from it as well. So that then if money changes hands, that's great for the
Mm.
intern. But
Mm.
if it doesn't, we know that knowledge has also gone both ways. I think that
Okay.
for me is very effective when there's clear expectations and a very focused goal in terms of what you'd want to achieve.
I honestly would love to keep you and continue this conversation, but as you know, time never
Time
is
is
really.
flying, I know. It's it's a topic we could talk about for days and days and days. Yeah.
Honestly speaking, and I've been enjoying the conversation. But before I let you go, How can we prepare students for the workplace in summary? What
Hmm.
do we do? Either as an individual, a corporate body, teachers, like everyone in total, how do we prepare that student for the workplace?
Okay. So I think the the two key things for me are to have a self-awareness of what your skills are. When you
Mm,
say communication, what does that mean? When you say teamwork, what does that mean? So have a glossary of what those terms actually mean so that your students,
right.
when they say, I'm a good team player, can I give an
Mm,
example of that? Because there's so many of these buzzwords in terms of skills.
right.
Understand what they actually mean in real terms.
Right.
How does it make me a good employee? And
Mm,
then be creative about finding ways to practice those skills. If you're
mm,
going to bake a cake with your siblings because it's the holidays, okay, how does the teamwork work in that setting, and so that might not be something that you would tell an employer per se, but it
mm,
might be that you have to compromise, you have to overcome conflict of like, okay, who wants to do this bit of the task, who wants to do this bit of the task, and so
mm.
just having that self-awareness, I think, is the first step so that you can then sell yourself to employers in the future and you can really position yourself. So that I think for me is where I would finish today.
Mm. Thank you so much, Emma, for sharing this beautiful insights. Honestly, like I said, I wish we could keep you and keep talking about this. It's really great insight, and I trust Lagos has also learned a thing or two. But for parents, guardians, those in this space, in the education space, that would love to maybe partner with you, learn a few things from you, and probably ship some interns your way. How can they reach out to you? What are your social media handles that they can reach out to you on?
No problem. So first of all, I just want to say a big thank you to Niger Startups, for setting up today's conversation. It's
Thank
a
you.
great community of kind of business leaders and owners, and there are people out there who, are keen to hire and to hire the right people. So I think keep investing in those skills.
Mm,
At the Graduate Guidance Group, we kind of support schools and universities with their career days, offering advice, connecting with different kind of employers through kind of careers days and so on. So in terms of social media, you can follow us on G3 Africa. That's on Instagram, or you can look us up on LinkedIn as well. So we do a mix of kind of advice on choosing the right university courses as well as kind of preparing for the world of work. So thank you very much once again for having me.
my absolute pleasure. And Lagos, that's how we drop cutting today on Business Hub. I'm sure you've enjoyed every session and every bit of the conversation. But as you know, the conversation, it doesn't end here. You get to also take it and run with it. But music is what we love to do best here in Smooth 98.1. So I've got that lined up for you. And it's a Thursday, it's a Tuesday rather. So it's definitely going to be great classic music for your listening pleasure. For you, I would move a muscle.
So everything business.
Thank you so much. It was really, really very beautiful having you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope it was in line with what you were expecting, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
conversation that can go on for hours and hours or days and
Trust
days.
me,
Yeah.
I get that. Like I said, it's more about the conversation than just questions are a guide, but it's more about the conversation. And we veered a bit off away from the question, so it was really insightful to have had you, share those insights this evening. Thank you so